In an interview, Sarah Ferguson was asked a tough question about taking a large amount of money, $40,000 in cash. She admitted that she did take it, but she said she gave it back as soon as she realized it was a scandal. When the interviewer pressed her for more details, she got defensive and told him not to try and trick her. She even asked the camera crew to delete that part of the recording. Sarah has always been known for being dramatic, but new stories are coming out about how she spent money that are truly shocking. We are talking about giant feasts that look like they were for a king from hundreds of years ago. She spent tens of thousands of dollars on athletic shoes that she barely ever wore. Her shopping trips were so out of control that even the queen had to step in and help pay the bills. A royal author named Andrew Lownie has written a new book called The Rise and Fall of the House of York. This book opens the door on the Duchess's money problems. It says Sarah wasn't just living a rich life, she was living like her money would never run out. The book claims she built up millions of dollars in debt while treating herself to everything she wanted. She went on fancy shopping trips, hired private coaches, ordered huge dinners, and bought endless luxury items. The author describes her world as one of total excess, where she bought way too much of everything. The interviewer asked if we would ever see Sarah in public life again. The expert answered that we should never say never with Fergie, because she is a survivor. He said she has friends in places like China and the Middle East who still like to be around her. But back at home, she lived like bills didn't matter because she thought someone else would always pay for them. Sometimes, that person was Queen Elizabeth II herself. It is hard to believe that a woman who lived in royal palaces could owe so much money, but the details are crazy. In 1994, a very fancy bank called Coutts, which is the same bank the royal family uses, told Sarah she had to pay them £500,000 within 14 days. That is a huge amount of money. Reports say the Queen had to use her own money to save Sarah from a total financial disaster, and that was not the only time. Sources say the Queen quietly helped pay off Sarah's debts many times over the years. How did it get this bad? The new book paints a picture of spending that nobody stopped for a long time. For example, look at her Christmas shopping. It is said that two workers from a famous store called Selfridges spent a whole day in a private VIP room just picking out hundreds of expensive gifts for one of her holiday parties. There is a clip where Sarah talks about how much the Queen loved her and allowed her to be herself. But while she was being herself, she was also spending a fortune. She was known to send her helpers to the store every few days to pick up expensive face creams, makeup, and hair products. She didn't pay with cash. She charged it all to her personal account. By the time the bill came, she owed £51,000 to just that one store. Her staff told stories that sound like a movie about royalty, not a real family home. One person who used to work for her said she demanded huge dinners every night that looked like a banquet from the Middle Ages. Every evening, the table was set with a big piece of beef, a leg of lamb, and a whole chicken. But here is the crazy part. Most of that food was never eaten. One person said it was a feast fit for a king, but it just got thrown in the trash the next morning. It was a huge waste. The butler even had to come to work at 4:30 in the morning just to put fresh watercress on ice, just in case she might want some later that day. She also had personal trainers, hairdressers, and exercise teachers who were paid hundreds of pounds every hour just to wait around in case she wanted them. There was news about a scandal involving Sarah's charities, and they quickly tried to separate themselves from her. This kind of trouble could hurt her wallet. The spending stories continued to be shocking. One personal trainer was allegedly paid £65,000 a year just to be available for her. But in a whole year, Fergie only used this trainer 2 times. Even with all these bad headlines, people on the inside say the Queen still had a soft spot for Sarah, who used to be her daughter-in-law. Several people told the author that Queen Elizabeth quietly paid Sarah's bills more than once. But by 1994, the amount of money she owed was eye-watering. It had reached £3.7 million. Her spending was way higher than the money she was actually making from her allowance and business deals. It got so bad that she reportedly needed permission from the bank just to write a small check. When she stopped paying the local shops, the news spread fast. A newspaper shop stopped selling her things after she didn't pay a bill for £500. In another clip, Sarah gets upset with an interviewer and asks him to delete a question because she feels it is too much like gossip. But the financial problems were very real. A local butcher and a dry cleaner refused to serve her anymore because she wouldn't pay. Even her gas card for her car was taken away because she owed too much money. But the Duchess didn't seem to worry. Former workers say she always believed a new deal was coming soon. She thought a brand partnership, a TV show, or a favor from the royals would fix her money mess. Buying and renting houses was another big problem. In 2009, Sarah reportedly signed a lease to rent a giant mansion for £3 million. The rent was £8,000 every month. But before she could even move in, the owners decided they wanted the house back. They made her pay a penalty fee of around £50,000. She had to pay all that money even though she never even stepped foot inside the house to live there. The book says this wasn't the first time. Years earlier, she paid thousands for another house she never moved into. It shows a pattern. She would make impulsive decisions, regret them later, and end up with massive bills. People still have some love for her because she is a survivor and does charity work, but her bad choices with money also involved misusing royal perks. The Duchess reportedly charged £6,500 to the Queen's private mail service. This service is supposed to be for official letters only, but Sarah allegedly used it every day to send expensive gifts to her friends and business partners. She sent things like silver letter openers, money clips, and cufflinks with names carved into them. To her, these were nice gifts. To others, it was another example of her acting entitled and using money that wasn't hers. Behind all the glamour, other people were paying the price. After Prince Andrew's office looked at her huge expenses, they had to fire 12 staff members. Some of those workers had not been paid for 6 months. The interviewer asked the author who Sarah Ferguson really is. He answered that she is a woman with great charm who can do a lot of good, especially for poor children, but her money habits hurt the people close to her. Loyal employees, like her driver who worked for her for 10 years, her dresser, and her personal assistant, were all fired. One former worker said that greed and wastefulness were the reasons for her downfall. Her household was just Sarah and her 2 daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, but they spent money like they were a huge army. One insider called the spending absurd. Then there was the travel. Fergie reportedly missed many flights that could not be refunded, wasting thousands of dollars. When she did fly, she packed extremely heavy. Reports say she would arrive at the airport with as many as 25 suitcases. She had to pay between £800 and £4,000 just for the extra baggage fees every time she flew. At least 5 of those bags were filled just with makeup and toiletries. One helper said it wasn't because she needed it, it was just to show off. It was a display of wealth to make her look important. By the middle of the 1990s, the consequences of her spending were impossible to ignore. Shops stopped letting her buy things on credit. Newspapers started writing stories about her bad money management. The palace started getting nervous about always having to rescue her. Eventually, Sarah had to sell her own personal things, like jewelry and art, just to keep going. Her marriage to Prince Andrew had already ended by then. This meant she didn't have the same royal protection or the same safety nets for money. In 1996, she wrote a book about her life called My Story. In the book, she admitted that she was overdrawn at the bank by £3.3 million. This confirmed the rumors were true. She called herself Santa Claus all year long. She said she spent money she didn't have because she wanted to keep everyone around her happy, but the damage was already done. There is a clip of Sarah talking about nature, walking with dogs and smelling flowers. It sounds peaceful, but her real life was full of stress about money. The author of the new book says her life is a cautionary tale. This means it is a warning story for others. He says her ambition and carelessness with money caused a perfect storm. By the time her debts were at their highest, insiders described her as unmanageable. She was charming in public, but a disaster in private. The author believes her personality was shaped by insecurity. She felt the need to look glamorous and generous, even if it meant drowning in debt. Whether you agree with the author or not, the numbers tell the story. She spent thousands on extra luggage, tens of thousands on gifts, hundreds of thousands on staff she didn't need, and millions in total debt. To be fair, Sarah has never denied that she spent too much. In interviews, she has admitted that she was hopeless with money. She said she was impulsive and trusted people too much who promised to help her. In later years, she tried to fix her image by doing charity work, writing books, and appearing on TV. She spoke honestly about her mistakes and said she learned from them. But even today, people have different opinions about her. Some see her as a victim who is criticized too much for doing things that other rich people do quietly. Others think she represents the worst side of royal privilege, believing that rules don't apply to her. It is also a story about being lonely and insecure. She was trying to keep up an image in a world where how you look is everything. Behind the fancy feasts and luxury goods was a woman who was terrified of losing her place in the royal world. Maybe that is why she kept spending even when she owed money. Stopping would mean admitting it was all over. In the end, the story of the Duchess of York is both sad and extravagant. She lived like a queen long after she wasn't one anymore, and the cost of that fantasy was millions of pounds.